Perhaps in the background you can hear our little farmhand making some noise. Not sure if anybody's going to join us this morning, but I just thought, hey, why not? Give a little bit of time for some questions and answers. If nobody joins us, that's quite all right. You can always watch it later, find out a little bit about us, where the name came from, what kind of style do we use for raising pigs, those kinds of things. So fascinating, at least to me. Where did the name No Wei come from? So my wife is not from the U.S. Our first name is Wei, and it's spelled exactly the way that it shows up for the name of our farm. A lot of people had some issues with how do you pronounce it, so I got to the point where I'd say Wei, like no way. Got a few chuckles throughout our marriage. Have had a lot of fun with it. I haven't been in farming for a very long time period, only a few years. And so one day, talking with a buddy, he's like, well, what are you going to name your farm? And I just said, no way. He thought it was funny. He got a good chuckle out of it. So I had a lot of fun with doing that. Just kind of, having fun with how to say her name and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's where the name comes from. No way. Just started as a joke and kind of went from there. Just gonna hop over to my computer here real quick. I am definitely not prepared for doing a live stream at all, and perhaps later, if this goes well and some people have interest in it, we may have to upgrade to actually doing a more professional way of doing things. Anyway, so a few years ago, got into farming more by chance than anything else. A buddy of mine had been providing us with farm raised pigs, and he was going out to get some piglets, and he was like, hey, do you want some? Initially, I was very excited and gung ho about it, and then I had to approach my wife and see if that would be something that we could do. She did give me permission to do that, so that's kind of how that started. I had no background or real knowledge about what kind of setup I would need for doing any kind of pig farming. So I had to rely on him very heavily, what I needed, how to get started, what kind of prep I needed to do. So we started with basically some feeder pigs and kind of have grown from there. Got a bunch of hog panels and set those up. Our initial pen was 1,600-ish square feet, and we had 4 pigs initially, and then we grew our herd rather quickly from there, added on a few more pigs. Since that time period, I've just been having a lot of fun with educating myself, pretty much reading as much as I could about pigs, pig farming. And over time, we've started getting into more by chance the whole farrow to finish aspect with farming. So the buddy that got me involved in pig farming in the first place is also the one who ended up having a boar. Was not supposed to have a boar because most of the times when you get finished pigs, your pigs are castrated by the point in time that you get them. Usually that happens anywhere between 10 and about 24 days from their birth. So he didn't realize he had a boar for quite a while. Then at that point in time, because it was not a castrated pig, he had to figure out what he was going to do with it. He was not interested in doing any kind of farrow to finish type of farming. So when he approached me about possibly getting involved with farrow to finish, I had to choose a couple of my gilts, which are female pigs that haven't had a litter, to raise up to eventually be with Bill. So I chose the most interactive pigs, the two most gentle pigs that I could, because I want my herd to be able to, how should I say? I want my herd to not be aggressive, and that's one of the prime things that I was looking for. Looks like my buddy Ford River Farm has joined us. How do your pigs do in this cold weather? So our pigs are actually pretty hardy. There are a lot of different breeds of pigs, and primarily our females are a combination of Duroc and Hampshire pigs. There's a little Berkshire in them as well. So they have fat distribution that their leaf lard is a little bit thicker than average pigs. They have the ability to grow a much thicker hair coat, so they do pretty well out and about in the cold weather. When it gets down below zero, they definitely have less activity outside of their barn. As far as for the barn that we have, it's originally the whole barn on the property was kind of a afterthought. When I bought the property, it was actually a tax repo, and so I got it relatively inexpensively. The barn started off as a much larger building than it is right now. There was a sort of pole building that covered a 70-foot long mobile home, which initially we had to take the mobile home out because you couldn't just pull it out because of the way they had built it. So I had to take that apart and then cut the barn down to, I believe it's 46 feet long. And off of one side of that, they had a little sort of, I guess, area where you could stand under to be out of the rain. But the way they had set it up, there was no real access to that without walking around the entire barn. That area is 8 foot by 24 feet, and that's what I eventually closed in. It is mostly insulated, and that's where my pigs are. And when you see the farrowing footage from where the little piglets go into, that's the center section. Each part is about 8 foot by 8 foot, and on each end of where the farrowing area is where the big pigs sleep. So west and east, because the barn is basically facing east to west completely, is where the entrances are for the big pigs to enter the pasture. When Shoulder had her litter, that's when we started doing the YouTube video and channel stuff here. What I did was I separated the west side of the pasture so she could have her piglets out and about with her, out in the sun, a little bit of muck so they could stretch their legs and play more than just the farrowing pen. Our pigs during winter do very well. Once it gets down, like I said, below zero, especially below 0 Fahrenheit, they get less active. They'll come out to eat, drink, and just do a little bit of rooting around. We have a small area of woods that are enclosed in the pasture, which they continually, year by year, work on destroying a little bit. I do feed them a little bit more during the winter, a little bit more protein especially, just so that they can keep their weight up and not have to worry so much about the weather. As far as how do I get them water during the winter, kind of covered that a little bit in a little video not that long ago. There are a lot of different ways that people deal with cold weather for their pigs. I kind of go with the simplest and most effective way for me, which is frequently going out there, breaking the ice out of their watering bin, and then refilling it twice a day. I usually give them about 5 gallons each time. That allows them enough to drink, and still, once it freezes, it's not as much ice that I have to work really, really hard to get the ice out of the bed. I have seen some different watering troughs. Yeah, water is always a tough one, especially this time of year. I've seen a few different watering troughs that you can put a heater in. One of the downsides to that, especially with pigs, they're extremely destructive animals. So even with the rubber bins that we use, or rubber watering things that we use, they'll eventually destroy that simply from playing and being pigs. So having a metal type of structure or something like that with a heater leads to a few more risks associated with it. When I do raise some of our finished pigs into the winter time, I have a 50-gallon barrel with nipple drinkers, and I do have a heater that goes in that. A couple of downsides that I've run into with that is that they continually try to scratch themselves, especially on the nipple drinkers, and a couple times have broken the nipple drinkers off. Then the heater sinks pretty much all the way close to the bottom. I've ended up with it burning one of our 50-gallon barrels, so I had to, in the middle of winter, makeshift another setup so that they could continue to have water. So water is always kind of one of those things that's a little bit harder to get to pigs this time of year. Um, yeah. And then as far as the food, I use 3 different little pans for the pigs just to decrease their energy output fighting over the food, especially this time of year. I want them to conserve as much energy as possible. Once the weather starts to warm up a little bit, so we're talking above 0 Fahrenheit, they get a lot more active outdoors. Bill gets a little bit more frisky, especially with the girls. And so that's a good sign that hopefully come around June, we should have another litter. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one. So, yeah, hopefully in a while we'll have some more baby piglet videos for you. Kind of was a little bit of a letdown this year when Bootstraps lost her litter. I can only assume that a predator got close to the fence. As I mentioned, we do have bear in the area. Not really too worried about bear getting aggressive with the pigs because we do have the electric fence. So unless they're extremely hungry, they'll be turned off by the electric. And yeah, we're definitely smack dab in the middle of coyote territory, and just a few miles away you can always hear the wolves going. So if there's ever a change in that territory, I'll have to watch for wolves in the area a little bit more. But as it stands, coyotes aren't really too big of a worry for my pigs, seeing as even though they're not aggressive, they're definitely territorial when it comes to certain animals entering their pens. They don't like the deer sharing their food. Bill does like to chase off. Bill does like to chase off the birds as well. That's great fun for him. How big were? Let's see. Hold on one second. How big were the piglets when this happened? So I'm assuming you're talking about the loss of the litter by Bootstraps. As far as what was left when I got out there to see, I would say maybe she was a month into her gestation at that point in time. So she really hadn't gotten very far into her gestation when she lost the litter. Um, and when that happens, I mean, that always provides a little bit of a kind of hardship for us. We don't rely solely on our farm to make our profit, but it definitely does help supplement our income. And yeah, so that was rough. It's been kind of an odd year as far as things happening, but yeah, so she wasn't very far along just from the size of what she passed. Yeah, so it was really quite early on when she did lose her litter. So, and it's good to see you. Um, let's see, a couple other things. So for the big pigs, I have just about, I'd say, just under a half an acre actually enclosed for them. We definitely do try to do as much pasture forest as we can for our pigs. You've been out to the farm, so yeah, like a spontaneous abortion. Yep. And the only thing I can really think that would have caused it is increase in stress. And since our pigs don't have a whole lot of stress, the only thing I can really equate that to would be a predator. Oh, well, thank you, sir. Um, so let's see. We've we've definitely been making some good progress in expanding the pasture for the big pigs. I know that some people comment that our pigs have too much space, and what I've found is they like to stretch their legs. They definitely do utilize the majority of their pasture. There are a couple of places down the hill in the pasture that they don't go to as frequently. But in my opinion, that's actually a good thing. If you look at pigs in the wild, they'll kind of gravitate to one area. You'll get where they've torn up the ground a lot more. And even though I don't want them to be as destructive as pigs in the wild would be, I want them to have those natural instincts and those abilities to root and do all of those things that pigs naturally do so that they have as natural an environment for their happiness as possible. So even with our little pigs, like I said, that's true. Pigs can never really have enough space. So even for our little pigs, like I said, we have about 1,600 square feet for them. So when you look at like an industrial farm where they're just raising finishing pigs for the sake of finishing pigs, standard around the country for most farms is about 20 square feet per pig. So with our 1,600 square feet, even if we have a lot more pigs in that area and a pretty big size herd for us for finishing is usually about eight. I think we've gone as high as 10 pigs. So you're looking at about eight times the size of what an industrial farm would actually provide for pigs to finish. It gives them a lot of room, a lot of space. I definitely spend a lot of time with our pigs, and it's even more time with our pigs than a lot of my fellow hobby farmers spend with theirs. I want my pigs to be happy, healthy, and I find that as far as from a customer side standpoint, my customers definitely have expressed appreciation for the quality of product that we provide. Word of mouth is definitely one of the biggest ways that we get business. Um, After I deliver the pigs to our customers, I usually follow up with a phone call or a text message within 7 to 10 days. And some of our customers can't even wait for that to tell us how great our product is. And so that's always made me pretty happy. I've been told by a few of our customers that I'm very passionate about our pigs, and I am very extremely passionate about our pigs. I definitely enjoy it. It's not for the money, that's for sure. If you look at getting into doing pig farming like we do, and you're looking to make a lot of money, you're gonna have to do an industrial type farm because ROI, so return on investment, if you're getting finishing pigs, is going to be less than if you're doing farrowing pigs, and it's still not less by much. So ROI is probably anywhere from 7 to 10% of the total pig cost. So it's not like I'm going to get rich off of doing this. So it's definitely a labor of love. And my wife helps me out quite a bit with the paperwork aspect of the farm. She's fantastic. She's always grabbing the receipts and keeping them for us. Yeah, yep. Definitely, there's a emphasis on trying to be sustainable and self-sustainable. That's kind of why once the option for getting the boar was presented, I pretty much, talked to Wei, made sure it was something that she would, be okay with me doing. And just the perpetuation of having greater access to having our own herd was something that I was really excited to do. And the only way you can do that is by having the ability for animal husbandry. So let's see. Buddy of mine, his daughter is actually in veterinary school right now. And he used to tease her all the time because she wasn't a real big fan of pigs. And so he was like, I'm going to take you out there and you can see these pigs. And she was not a big fan. She's doesn't like pigs. So finally, this winter, when she was back home visiting, he talked her into coming out to seeing the pigs. And she had what I assume was a very good time with our pigs. She actually got in the pasture with them. She was petting them after she took a bunch of photos with our pigs and stuff. She had mentioned that she really does like our pigs. So I think a big part of her not liking pigs was simply because of having to deal with industrial farming, and it's a completely different mindset from what we try to accomplish with our farm. In industrial farming, you're only looking at your bottom line. You're not looking at each animal individually, looking at their personalities, looking at how they interact with you and how happy they are. And realistically, I try to keep my pigs as happy as possible. My pigs don't go for want. They never go without food or water. I'm always hopping in, even with the little pigs, as you can see from our prior videos with the piglets. Always hopping in, scratching their bellies, getting them used to human interaction. So the litter that Shoulder Holster had a few months back actually went off completely. The entire litter that made it went off to offset the cost of getting the boar. And a few of those pigs ended up with another farmer who I received a video from my buddy, so it was secondhand. And the pigs looked absolutely beautiful. And that she was talking about how great their personalities were. The only thing I can really assume from that was just based off of how much interaction they had with me. Our pigs definitely have a good interaction with humans on a regular basis. So the quality of our pigs that go off to other farms, they're ready to have some human interaction, to enjoy that human companionship, and just have great personalities. I think you can see that from some of our videos, the little piglet chasing my cell phone, all of that stuff. All the little pigs flopping over while I'm petting their bellies, getting real excited when they see me coming up to the fence line. Um, I know that's your mantra for sure, Ford. So my buddy Ford River Farm is on here. I actually used to work with Ford River. I do have a real job other than trying to run the farm. And we worked together for quite a few years. I unfortunately had to leave that job about a year and a half ago, roughly. And definitely enjoying my new job. But still, going out to the farm, seeing the pigs, interacting with them brings a completely different level of peace to life. I remember as a kid, or young man, I guess I should say, I kind of did want to be a farmer. And then life happened. I got married, had a kid, and some of those little dreams that you have as a younger person kind of go away. So, like I said, when I got presented with the possibility of doing farming, and like I said, it was just got into it sheerly by, oh, okay, why not? Um, it definitely was exciting to me, daunting. Up until this point in time, pretty much the only animals I've ever had been dogs. Speaking of which, our Great Dane is featured in a couple of our little videos. She's a very, very old Great Dane. So, looking at, yeah, looking at that friendship eventually having to go away, just because unfortunately dogs don't live as long as we want them to. So, yeah, it'll be sad when she goes, and hopefully I'll be able to make a little montage of all of her photos throughout the years. But she's been a great companion, and she loves going out to the farm. Not so much anymore. She had a tangle with the electric fence, and now she's a little intimidated by the whole farm and going out there and getting out of the truck or the car or whichever vehicle I have. Um, so, yeah, like I said, farming's great. As far as during the wintertime, you've got the increased issues with trying to keep the water, keep your pigs healthy, etc. But, the upside to it is there isn't as many projects going on simply because you can't put new fencing in when the ground is frozen. So it gives me a little bit more downtime to plan on what I'm going to be doing for the next year. During the winter, we also do grow a lot of mint. If you've seen any of our videos about that. And we also have basil. It's a pretty standard basil, and I grow quite a few plants of that. Most of those have been propagated off of themselves, so I guess cloned over several years that I've been growing them. Got some oregano, parsley, black pepper plants. Yeah, we've got a tomato that's been going indoors for, I'm guessing it's about 2, maybe 3 years old, and it's still going, still producing for us. And that's what we've got indoors. Thinking about hopefully doing a nice garden this year, trying to increase our ability to sustain ourselves as we go along. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. Looks like I've been talking for about a half an hour. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If this is something that tricks fancy for you, just let me know. And lots of herbs. Oh, yeah, you got a great greenhouse. That is an amazing greenhouse you built. Um, definitely a cool greenhouse. Saw your video about how warm it was out there. It looks like you could probably be growing stuff right now. It is kind of amazing how well heated your greenhouse is for, this time of year. Because I think it was what, 6 or 8 below outside when you made that video, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's awesome, buddy. Yeah, keep up the good work. Start your plants early. Let me know what awesome stuff you've got growing out there. And well, everybody, I think this has been interesting and fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free, let me know, because I just kind of rambled on who we are. And by the way, now you get a face for the voice and the laughter of all the pigs. All right, everybody. Hope you have a great day. Enjoy this semi warmer than usual weather that we've been having, because I believe the temperature is up to about 6 degrees. Always good to have a warm snap. All right. Bye bye.